Good afternoon. Why not another video today? Let's do another video. I have been racking my brain about these new Ironjaw units and how to play them and what their rules are and everything, and a really great thing to do is to start comparing them to similar units in the army and in other armies. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to look at Gore Gruntas and the new Maw Grunta. Specifically, we're going to look at the Gouger because they're only 10 points difference. And we're going to look at the two units and sort of compare them side by side and see what the heck we're supposed to do with these new models. Okay, so how are they the same? Well, they're about the same points. The Gouger is 10 more points. Cool. They have about the same movement speed. They both start at 9 movement speed, with the Gouger moving up to 12 on the top of his momentum table, which will never happen. It's just never going to happen. They both have 4-up saves. They are both good versus Battle Shock. If 2 Gore Gruntas die on a 5-up, you'll lose the last one. If 1 Gore Grunta dies on a 6-up, you lose it. But if you have a reinforced unit of Gougers and you lose one, I'm sorry. If you have a reinforced unit of Gougers and 1 Gouger dies, the other one can't fail Battle Shock. If they're double reinforced, like if they're Battle Line and you have 3 of them, if you lose 2 of them, like 24 damage in 1 turn, then on a 6-up, the last Gouger dies. So, I mean, the Gouger is kind of immune to Battle Shock, right? The Gore Gruntas have 15 wounds, 3 times 5, right? And the Gouger has 12 wounds, so they're about the same. Because you can lose models, it affects all kinds of things, right? Like healing is different. They get weaker over time. And then here is a comparison of their damage. So the Gruntas with no buffs whatsoever are going to deal about 6.37 damage or 0.037 damage per point. The Gougers are going to deal slightly more damage, like we're talking 0.15 more damage, and so they're at 0.036 damage per point. Now, the difference between the baseline here is that the Gouger is always going to deal this much damage. Always. Like, no matter as long as it's alive, it's going to be dealing this much damage. But the Gruntas are going to lose that damage over time. So the Gouger is going to be better at fighting, like, for multiple rounds with no buffs. It's going to stay in the fight. It's going to keep being able to do its damage every turn. But the Gruntas without any buffs are going to go into the fight, deal whatever their damage, and then when they start taking damage back, their damage is going to whittle down really pretty quickly, right? Every 5 wounds, you're losing about 1/3 of the damage. And it's, yeah, so, I mean, it's baseline damage. The Gouger wins in the baseline damage by, like enough to matter. The Gouger wins in baseline enough to matter. Also, in this baseline, I didn't include Stomp as a way of getting a little bit more damage through, right? So I didn't include that. So no buffs all by themselves. Gougers outperform Gruntas more than their 10-point increase. Cool. So War Scroll buffs. So the Gruntas have no War Scroll. That's a lie. That's a lie. They're War Scroll buffs. The Gruntas have their charge. So they're going to be dealing an extra like 2.7 mortal wounds on the charge, right? So they're going to deal, yeah, like a little bit more damage when they charge. Those mortal wounds are relevant, especially against high damage targets. So, I mean, I guess that kind of balances out the Stomp, right? The Gruntas are going to go in and deal their mortals 1 time, but the Gouger can deal his Stomp. If he's stuck in combat every turn, he can sort of keep stomping. Yep. They also both count for about the same on objectives. The Gouger is 5, and the Grunta is going to be 6, right? And then 4, and then 2. So the Gouger, I think, wins in that respect as well, right? Maybe not taking an objective, but holding an objective. I think the Gouger is a little bit better. So War Scroll buff here, we have the Gouger at 9.19 damage. So this is if its momentum is at 6. So if its momentum is at 6, what we're doing is 1 attack is getting +3 damage. That's all. So it's 2 dice, right? Get +3 damage. So that's not nothing. You know, like that's a fair bit of damage. But the thing is so there's little asterisks here beside the War Scroll buff. And the asterisk is because if you want to be able to run and charge, if you want to get up on the momentum table, you have to run and charge. There's no other way around it. You lose 1 momentum at the end of every turn. That means if you go first and you run or charge, not both, if you do one or the other, you're going to get an average of 2 points. By the time it's your turn again, you're going to lose those 2 points. The only time you're not is if you double turn, in which case you're only going to lose 1 point, and then you can charge again. So even then, you're going to be, if you double turn, on average, you're going to be at 4 momentum. So what does that give us? 2 more move, right? Which is like, okay, but we're already running in, like, it's like fine, right? But the and we're getting +2 damage on the mighty tusks, so a maximum of 4. So it's like, it's not that significant. The monstrous rampage, if you're not running and charging, you're just not going to get access to this. You're just not going to get access to it because you're losing 2 a turn. So you need to run and charge in a 1 turn to get a spike of them, and then you can actually do it, right? If you run and charge, you're going to be on average at 5. You're going to be on average at 5. So that means you have to roll under your whatever. So that becomes like a 2 up effectively. No, sorry, that becomes a 3 up effectively. Right? There's 2 conditions to failure. 1 and 2. If you're at 6, it's like a 2 up. But so if you can't run and charge in a turn, you're not going to get the monstrous rampage. You're not. I have a feeling that one of the enhancements that we're going to get for the Tusk boss is going to be like maybe a once per game run and charge, or pick a unit of whatever and it can run and charge this turn, because otherwise momentum makes absolutely no sense. It makes no sense. It's not good at all. If you can't run and charge, what are you doing? If you lose the double turn, you're losing 3 momentum before it's your turn again. So if you run turn 1 and you get a 3 and then you get double turned, like you're losing that momentum. Like you're not going to get it over time. So Zogrok is better with Gruntas because Gruntas have a lot more dice, right? You're doing 4 times 3, 12, and then 3 times 3, 9 plus 1. So it's like you're rolling double the dice. So Zogrok is going to deal more damage. And Violent Fury is also going to deal more damage because Gruntas, all their attacks are 1. And so when you add Violent Fury, you're effectively going to double their damage. But with the Gougers, when you're adding +1 damage, because their damage is all like D3 and 2, so it's kind of like it's 2 each. You're only adding a 50% increase and not a 100% increase. So Violent Fury is better on Gruntas than it is on Gougers. Everything is better on Gruntas than Gougers. Everything. All the buffs. Hoarfrost, all of those things. So with everything all together, with all of these buffs, we're looking at 16.41 damage for Gruntas and 14.11 damage for the Gougers, which is significantly different. And this doesn't include Hoarfrost. If you can throw Hoarfrost on the Tusks and Hooves from Gore Gruntas, their damage goes up even higher. And the asterisk beside the War Squirrel buff for the Gougers is the points. I also included Rabble Rouser because he's the only way you can run and charge, right? So that's it. Okay, so how are they different? So Gruntas are not a monster. So they don't have that utility. They can't roar, they can't stomp, they can't flatten into the mud, which you can't do that. They don't have access to any kind of run and charge. They can't smash to rubble. They don't count as 5 on objectives, right? Like there's a lot of reasons that having a monster in your list is worth it, and so the Gougers bring all those things. The Gore Gruntas don't. The Gruntas lose models over time, and so they get weaker over time in lots of different ways. The Gougers don't. They have no degradation over their table. So again, they're going to always be fighting at the top of their table, while Gruntas are not. Gruntas are going to get worse over time, which means the Gore Gruntas are more dependent. They need buffs to be good, right? They need those things, while the Gougers don't, right? Because the Gore Gruntas are better with buffs, you can buff them and send them in, and the Gougers can sort of take their time and run off into the side, and hopefully maybe set up for a double turn and hopefully get a little bit of momentum, right? So the Gore Gruntas are significantly better with buffs. All of the buffs are better on Gore Gruntas. It doesn't matter what damage buff it is, doesn't matter what kind of buff it is, it's better on Gore Gruntas for that first attack, right? Gore Gruntas are going to have all 3 of their models. You buff them up, you send them in, they punch, they're going to deal more damage. But Gougers are better with no buffs, especially versus high save targets. Because they have at least 1 rend on all their attacks. Gore Gruntas have 0 rend on more than half of their attacks. and then Mighty Tusks has 3 rend. So if it's a high save target, the Gougers are going to be able to chew through them with no buffs better than Gore-Gruntas, right? Gore-Gruntas are still going to be able to do it better with a lot of buffs, but without any buffs, the Gougers are going to be better at fighting. The Gore-Gruntas can issue commands to themselves. So you can teleport them and then Mighty Destroyer them and then do a 3-inch charge. So you can buff them all up, teleport them, punch into the backline like you're doing like a surgical strike. You know, you're picking a target, you're picking a screen, you're picking where you want to be, and you're getting there, and there's nothing that your opponent can really do about it, right? There's very little that your opponent can do about it. But the Gougers can't do that. You can teleport them, but they can't Mighty Destroyer, right? They don't have any. There's no way that you can. You'll just be looking at staring down a 9-inch charge, right? And there's nothing that you can do about it. So they're not a surgical strikey unit. They're not that. They're more like a grindy, sustain kind of unit instead. And then another thing that Gougers can do is that you can run on turn 1. You can turn 1 run and charge. That's something that the Gore-Gruntas can't do, right? So it's like Gougers are going to be, like I said, better at sustaining a fight over time, and they're also going to be better at an alpha strike. You can, if they're sitting next to a Mega Boss, right? You can Mighty Destroyer them, then you can run them, and then you can charge them. So they're going to be better at like getting into an opponent. Like I could see Ironjawz playing two Gore-Grunt or two big pigs in a unit, and then a single pig in another unit, and then 3 units of Gore-Gruntas to fill the battle line. Like I could see that as a list. And then turn 1, and that's the next list I'm going to actually try out. And then turn 1, it's just like you got Maw Crush and 3 big pigs all going in all at once. And then they're going to get in and grind. And they're going to get their run and charge. So hopefully you're going to get the best of their monstrous actions and their momentum. All of that, you're going to get the best of that on the first turn. And then they're going to grind through. And then if there's anything left over, you right, like wherever you're losing, you can then buff up a unit of pigs and send them in for that one big turn. And on turn 1, they're just grabbing objectives, right? And then on turn 2, you're like, well, I'm weak over there, so buff, charge, smash. Like I could see that being good. Okay, so conclusion: Gore-Gruntas are going to deal a lot more damage if you want to put some buffs on them. They're a missile to launch into the enemy for a single high damage attack. That's their role. Gougers are better at fighting alone in a corner. They won't lose models, and you can take monstrous actions. Any momentum that you get is just a bonus, but will likely be very low impact. Even if you have 6 momentum on a Gouger, you're getting maximum 3 damage. You get a monstrous action but like not even one that is necessarily always good. You can run in charge, all that stuff. So maybe they're best together. Let me know what you think. Like, subscribe. Wah.